Hello, my name is Chris Snipes, and you are listening to The Melt. There have been, throughout history, those who have believed that the human race has been unwittingly participating in a sham. That historical events, world leaders, and the masses have merely been marionettes stepping and fetching for a false god who would have us infighting and divided, convinced that there is nothing that lies beyond the material world. Having us live our lives in a mad rush bookended between the cradle and the grave, as we are told that all that there is to this life is climbing the ladder, keeping up with the Joneses, feeding our egos, and thinking that we are all the center of the universe. This is the only way that we can be coaxed into separating ourselves from each other, from nature, and from our humble place in the cosmos. We have allowed a band of hucksters to set up shop and have given them the role as the middlemen between us and the direct experience of the divine. There are those who believe that there are beings behind all of these charades, beings that not only manipulate what we perceive as reality so that we exist in a perpetual state of fear, but that they actually feed off of this fear. To the Gnostics, these would be the Archons. And, according to today's returning guest, Laurence Galian, there are many techniques not only to help us recognize their presence and influence, but also to rid them from our lives and free us from their shackles. He has written a book entitled Alien Parasites, 40 Gnostic Truths to Defeat the Archon Invasion, and I invited him on The Melt to talk about it. I start off the interview by asking what interest these Archons have in undermining us.
Well, undermining us is exactly the word for it. Remember, we were talking about how originally in a lot of the Gnostic stories, the absolute reality brought forth what the Gnostics call the pleroma. And inside the pleroma, sometimes they include the absolute inside the pleroma, but that sort of defeats my idea of the absolute being absolute and infinite. So, but inside the pleroma are all these whirling, swirling energy vortices. And this was the first life that the absolute gave birth to. And in many Gnostic books, the absolute is referred to as feminine, in feminine terms. So, or androgynous. That's also another big thing in Gnosticism, androgyny. So these vortices of energy, they are called aeons. And each aeon had a partner. They were a masculine, feminine kind of polarity, and they and almost all the mythologies of the world, we see a god coupled with a goddess, and but what we don't know so much nowadays is, like in India, we know the names of the three gods, Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva, but very few people know that their consorts are actually the most powerful. They derive all their power from their female or feminine consorts. So anyway, in the Pleroma, there are all these consorts, and in some of the stories in Nag Hammadi, one of the consorts, one of the pair, is the Christ and Sophia. And Sophia, remember, has the idea of these beings that were kind of an image, a mirror image of the Pleroma, but in physical form, in the form of earth, air, fire, and water combined. And she had this vision, and she went for it without consulting or asking for the participation of her consort. And this is considered the big fall, the big mistake of Sophia. Of course, blame the woman, but like I said, I think even many of the Nag Hammadi codices were written when already the attacks on women had begun, on the power of women. So, but anyway, that was supposedly the great era of Sophia, was that she began this process of creating the dream of beings, physical beings, that were images of the beings in the Pleroma, but without the assistance of her consort, the Christ. Now, there's a fellow, John Lamb Lash, who steadfastly refuses to say that it was the Christ. He just, I don't know. His first book is fabulous. If you want to read a great book, read Not in His Image. I think that's the title of it. It's fantastic, but he does not like the word Christ very much. And it had to do with the way Coptic is written and translated. They would put in I don't know the word in Coptic, but a letter X when they wanted to write Christ. And he has his reasons and for not saying it was the Christ, but the majority of scholars, all the books I've been reading, translated as Christ. Anyway, the point is that she, when Sophia realized what she had done, that, in other words, that she had kind of set off on her own impulsively to create this world, she became grief-stricken. After all, these aeons are partners. They're together for probably millions of years. And remember, it was located in the center of the galaxy. That's how the story goes. And she picked an arm of the galaxy to begin this experiment of hers. If she could create beings that were mirror images of the Pleroma, the beings in the Pleroma. But she was feeling such agony, such distress at suddenly being without her consort, and the realization that she had acted without her consort, because always they worked together in tandem and team, that her grief gave birth to a monster. In the Nag Hammadi text, it actually says an abortion.
Wow.
Yeah, that's strong. And that abortion was the demiurge. Now, suddenly there was this product of a aeon, Sophia, but she felt such pain, such suffering, such longing for her consort. And so this is how, for the first time, there was what you might call negativity entering into the cosmos. It was born out of love, in a sense, but a grief, having hurt, having harmed the one she loved, and ultimately, all the aeons are mirror images of the absolute. So it's offending the absolute. Well, this new abortion starts walking around and looking around. He doesn't see anything else. And so he assumes, well, I must be God. I'm the only one here, and I know a whole lot of shit, because after all, it was the aborted fetus of Sophia. So he had quite a great deal of knowledge, probably not very much wisdom. So yeah, he there's some funny stories in Nag Hammadi where he says, I'm the one and only God, just like Jehovah in the Old Testament. There are no other gods before me. And Sophia says, no, you're wrong. And she is kind of like, whack, whack, whack.
You idiot.
Right, yeah. Ren and Stimpy, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So she in her embarrassment, she puts like all sorts of clouds and stuff and hides him, tries to hide this monstrosity from the Pleroma. And in the meanwhile, as I mentioned the last time, some text put it in terms of that she came into contact with certain metalloids and other substances, but from what I understand intuitively, that the everything is creation. We've talked about this before. The absolute is nothing more than pure creativity, and as the Sufis say, I was a hidden treasure, and I desired to be known, so I created humanity. The Gnostics say I was a hidden treasure, I desired to be loved and to love, so I created humanity, or I created creation. And the demiurge still had this urge to reproduce images of itself, and so It's possible that he gave birth to lots and lots of little demiurges, mini demiurges, mini me's. Um, and that was according to some of the codices, that was the birth of the Archons. Um, and some people say that the Archons are just like mirror reflections of the demiurge. And of course, since the demiurge was not completely formed, as in an abortion, he cannot give the gift of the divine spirit to these archons. He cannot bless them with all the gifts that we human beings have. So they're extremely jealous of us, and they love to feed on our emotions, and especially our negative emotions. We could go on and on, various stories telling. There's one story where Yaldabaoth, one of the names for the demiurge, actually rapes Eve. So he got a bad reputation really quick. And so, yeah, that's in short a couple of the ways that they describe how the Archons came into being.
Now, is all of this the plane of existence that all of this is supposed to be taking place on? Is it sort of a non-physical astral realm, or I mean, are there any physical embodiments to any of these entities? Because I know that at one point, one of the reasons that the Archons are envious of us is because they can't embody physically, right? On the physical plane?
Well, yes, they cannot actually embody on planet Earth, and that's a very fantastic perception on your part, Chris. I really have to think about that. That's excuse me. That's brilliant. They because they were deprived of so much. And it reminds me of the writings of Steiner, Rudolf Steiner, that that he goes way back, and he taught what is basically came from India, the idea that the earth has had various incarnations. That the earth has had, I think, four so far, four incarnations. And with each incarnation, we became more deeply enmeshed into the physical. So this would support what you're saying, that the first, second, and third versions of the earth were not exactly physical in that sense. And in his book, Occult Science, he really goes into depth about how we appear to one another in these realms. And it's interesting because the Sufis, in particular Jalaluddin Rumi and Ibn al-Arabi, speak about the four steps that we pass through, that we all go through a mineral phase, a plant phase, an animal phase, and a human phase. So one way of putting it, it's actually a very beautiful concept, is that every human being has all these bodies, subtle bodies, interpenetrating ourselves. So of course, we have our physical bodies, and our physical bodies are made up of our carbon and things like that rocks are made up of. And then he said we have what's called the etheric body or the plant body, and this is the kind of what word am I thinking? The blueprint body, the life body, and a lot of magicians, esotericists, metaphysicians work with this body. It's the key force, the élan vital. It has many names, vril, but it's what gives us life. It's what animates. And you take a plant. A plant is it has life. It grows, and it consists of material substances from the earth, but it cannot feel. Well, there's some debate about that. I don't want to be silly about that. I do believe that plants can feel.
Sure.
But the point being that it's not completely developed in the plant at that time. It's just like we know that crystals can be very helpful to us. And without sounding too new agey, yes, crystals do have a sense of a very kind of formative seed sense of the plant dwelling inside themselves, of the life energy of the. And so, and I want to put out there, Rudolf Steiner taught that, and he was a Gnostic too, by the way. He before they discovered the Nag Hammadi library, so it wasn't easy to be a Gnostic before that. You really had to work at it.
Shit, you had to improvise.
Well, he would recite the Our Father so loud that, and he was on like the second floor of his building, but that people on the street could hear him every day reciting. And he has. There's Christopher Bamford has written a fabulous book, if you're interested in getting into Steiner, and it has his three versions of the Our Father, a Rosicrucian version, a Gnostic version, and anyway, so I forget where I was, but so after we have the plants, then the next level is that plants, generally speaking, do not walk around. They do not have a desire to say, I'd like to go over there, or I'd like to have sex with that plant, or something like that. So here comes the desire body, the astral body, the emotion body, and all us human beings have this body inside us. We have our emotions, we have our feelings. Every day we experience an assortment of feelings, and they can. The astral world is divided into upper and lower, because we can have exalted feelings and we can have very, very negative feelings also. And then finally, the crown on, I mean, all animals can feel deeply, can love deeply. Anyone who's had dogs or cats. Many animals know their profound love that can exist between us and them. And we'll get back to that later, maybe. But so, but then the human being has the divine spark inside ourselves. So that was kind of Sophia's vision for us, and to put together all those the minerals, plants, animals, but then put in that divine spark, and then we have an image of the pleroma. But now we have these very, very jealous beings that can't have, as you said, the physical body. Some say that they cannot enter the planet Earth because now it's Sophia. Sophia, remember, has sacrificed herself in a way, but she's living in the earth. And in some of the Nag Hammadi scriptures, it's amazing how the Gnostics thought, because when news reached the pleroma that Sophia is creating chaos, she's like created these beings, and she's created this monster that she has hidden behind these clouds. Well, who did they send? They sent her consort, the Christ, to help her out, to get her out of this situation that she was in. And I think here we have the basis for so many of the mythologies and romances that the world has known, and even much of the New Testament, if it's read in a certain way, that the Christ came not to save us from our sins, but to help Sophia out, and to kind of remind her who she is, that he is her boyfriend, so to speak, and they were once in the pleroma together, once upon a time. The prince and princess were together, and so now they dwell together in the earth. And so, of course, that would create an incredible protective barrier for any negative being, such as an Archon, to try to physically incarnate. But we have how many stories in, I think it's in Mark, that Jesus is constantly casting out the demons. And who are the demons? Archons. They are the Archons. He was kicking out Archons everywhere. And as we can see from reading the New Testament and the Nag Hammadi library, that the Archons have launched a complete invasion of the earth. And they're able, because we have the astral realm to communicate, and we have the etheric realm, they're actually able to kind of create a virtual existence in the minds of human beings. And remember, science is telling us now more and more that our minds are not like here, like this is where our brain is, and it probably has some kind of quantum tunneling effect with our mind, which could be, people say, in the lip of a black hole. Who knows where our minds are? So it's easy for the archons to start to play with us and to create chaos. And we're seeing that playing out in politics right now. We've seen it being played out all throughout human history. So yeah, I noticed that we spoke a lot about the absolute and the pleroma, but we never actually got to the second part of my book, the 40 Gnostic Truths to defeat the Archon Invasion.
Absolutely.
And I thought, oh my goodness, I know I said certain things that hopefully are helpful and that are in the book.
Yes.
But I thought today, with your permission, we could talk about some of the specifics.
Absolutely.
There. Yeah.
And isn't there an advantage for whether it be originating from the archons or from the demiurge, to keep us under the impression that the world that we are living in is very constricted to the material? Like, that's sort of a trap, sort of a hoodwink, right? That's sort of a...
Yes.
Does that make any sense?
Well, yes. It has a kind of double sense, in my opinion, because there are some Gnostics, I mentioned this last time, that reject completely the physical world. They didn't have sex. They lived real ascetic Spartan lives. But then there were Gnostics that really engaged in sex. There's this fellow I highly recommend, Tobias Churton. He's written many books on Gnosticism. I highly recommend his work, and this is Gnostic Mysteries of Sex, Sophia the Wild One, and Erotic Christianity.
I like it.
It's an inner traditions book, so you know it's a good book. But there is a kind of the archons want us to become obsessed with anything that takes us away from the spiritual. So, and normally speaking, that's the physical.
Especially the physical without the context of the spiritual.
Yeah, very well put. Yeah, exactly. Yes. One thing that I highly recommend in the book is that the archons love the inauthentic. They want to trap us in the inauthentic. So we can look anywhere in our homes, in our cars, and we have imitation this, imitation that, imitation leather, imitation artificial fabrics, and so on and so forth. So they hate anything that has to do with originality, true creativity. They love copies. They love imitations. So I urge people. One of the half the book is the 40 techniques plus plus two extra special techniques devoted to it's called part two, the solution, and one of them is to, whenever you purchase something, think about what it's made of, and we know just if we buy a carpet, for example, how dangerous the fumes can be from artificial fibers, and how sick we can get. They'll love that, that we will need to be in the hospital suffering. And So the Archons feed off of, they're vampires, they're energy vampires. So, and maybe that's where the origin of the whole vampire mythos has originated, is because that they are the feeders. Or if you're going to buy, you want a painting for your living room, well, don't go buy a copy of something. No, support your local artist. Go to a. I mean, there are so many galleries, so many starving artists that are selling their paintings for dirt cheap, and they're beautiful works of art. And wouldn't you rather have an original work of art on your wall than an image? And the most of the time you lose the color, and unless you buy a limited edition. Another thing that I highly recommend is to strengthen your mind, because the Archons always are playing mind games with us. They want us to think badly about ourselves. They want us to make wrong decisions. They don't want us to think clearly. So anything that you might do to strengthen your mind, like playing chess, for example, puzzles, the Chinese game of Go, for example. I have a good friend who's like really, really into this game. But what reality do we submerge ourselves into? It's the reality of Las Vegas. It's the reality of cruise ships, Hollywood, politics, pornography. How much does pornography have to do with actually having sex with another human being? Supermarket tabloids, on and on and on. So we had these false realities, they're hypnotizing us. And so if we have a strong mind, a disciplined mind, and we can stand up to attacks. Traditionally in magic, the black magicians know the secrets of the Archons. And one of the secrets is always attack a person's Achilles heel. You look for what is the person's Achilles heel, and either magically or directly, you attack it. So if we can eliminate as much as possible our Achilles heels, then we're much safer from archontic attack. And so our Achilles heel might be drinking a little bit too much beers every night, or cocktails, or drugs, or any of the 12-step addictions.
Sure.
There's a million of them.
Yeah.
And
like noise. mental noise.
Oh, yeah. Well, say more about that.
Well, let's see, a year ago, last July, I quit drinking. Not necessarily,
Congratulations.
thank you, thank you. Not necessarily because I thought that like I was becoming an alcoholic or something like that, but it was just, it wasn't conducive to lucidity, a lucid state of mind.
Mm.
And as you grow older, the the hangover begins to outweigh the night
Yeah,
before,
yes.
and I have kids, and I don't want to be fuzzy around my children. I don't want to be fuzzy around
Hmm.
the people that I love, or less present in my life than I already feel like I am. So that was a way of just cutting out a lot of noise. And then
Mm.
probably 2 weeks ago, I stopped smoking pot, uh, which was
Interesting.
my
Uh-huh.
compromise to doing that.
Uh-huh.
And because as much as I wanted to think that it, like you hear people talk about it mellows me out. It's my plant medicine and so on and so
Right,
forth. And it may
right.
have those effects for other people,
Sure.
but it doesn't for me. If I sat down and really looked at it with clear eyes, it gives me a lot of anxiety. It makes me very paranoid. It makes me hole up inside of myself and get caught up in sort of negative hamster wheels. And so that's just
Mm.
another level of noise, another frequency of noise. So I eliminated that. I've been so much clearer since then. So yeah, I mean that those things kept me from being lucid, kept me from being in the present, got me caught up in circles of mania, of shame, and the kind of self-reflection that isn't positive, that just is so makes
Mm.
you in such a overly self-conscious of it just takes you out of the present, basically, is what it boils down to. It did for me.
Right, right.
Yeah. So
Yes. Well, in the Gospel, according to Mary Magdalene
mhm.
in Nag Hammadi, she says, no, the Christ says, "For where the mind is, there is the treasure." So, where are you going to put your mind? What is your treasure?
Absolutely.
I remember a girlfriend once said to me a long time ago. We had to say goodbye for a long time. I was going away, and she said to me before we made love that she said, "I don't want to smoke pot before we make love because I want to be with you tonight."
That's great.
Yeah, I thought this is so beautiful, um, and I'll never forget that.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So what else do we have here that uh, I love quotes. I The book is full of quotes.
Yeah, some great
Uh,
ones.
oh, thank you. Uh, let's see. Jungian analyst. Individuation is the process, simple or complex as the case may be, by which every living organism becomes what it was destined to become from the beginning. So this is amazing.
Yeah.
Um, it's there are. I remember a story that Gurdjieff told about. I don't know if I've told this story before. Please tell me. The people who were born in a basement, and the basement of a mansion, and their parents tragically died while they were very young, and so they never knew that they were living in a basement. They didn't know that they had a whole mansion above them, a whole treasure that existed above them. And this seems to be the case with almost all human beings. Gurdjieff spoke a great deal about us being asleep that we're born asleep, that we live our lives asleep, and we die asleep. And that's a great tragedy, because we actually go back to that animal level, and we're like we're like the animals that the Archons feed off of, basically, because we're just emotions.
Yep.
We're just emotions. We don't have that divine spark that can uplift our emotions.
Bouncing from one reaction to another without reflecting, why. You also suggest in the book that we should another way of combating Archons is to stop feeding evil, like stop being fascinated by darkness. I like that.
Yeah, there's a that's difficult for many people to do, because it's well, you just turn on your TV and every channel. I mean, now there's shows about the FBI, Homeland Security. I don't know if there's a show about the CIA yet. There's quite a number of police shows, 3 or 4 police shows, and I feel real pain now when I'm looking at one of these shows. Sometimes I'll watch a show with my wife because it has the subtitles, and she doesn't speak English, and I don't speak Spanish that well. But anyway, when they show the murders or rapes or whatnot, I feel it inside, man. It's painful. It's and thank God that I got that when I remember in 2012 when I almost died in the hospital. When I came out of the hospital, I just absolutely could not watch television. It was unbearable to see any of these cop shows or people being shot or just a fist fight in a bar. Extremely painful, and
because you were so raw.
I think I was so like spiritually purified by what I had experienced in the hospital.
Sure.
And so the slightest hint of negativity would cause me unbearable sorrow and suffering. And still I still have problems with that.
Sure.
I don't like watching violence in movies or in television.
It's so easy to forget how sensitive we are to stimulus like that when we're so engulfed in it, like it's like fish being aware of water. We're so used to seeing stuff like that all around that we forget what it felt like before we had all of that stuff in our head,
Yeah,
like when we were children.
Well said. It's true. Yeah. That we forget what it was like when we didn't have that. And of course, too, as we were chatting about earlier, there are plenty of people out there, though, who did suffer as children, who did suffer various types of abuse, physical, mental, psychological. And it's not easy to come back from that. It's not. That's why these 12-step rooms are chock filled with people, because it's really pandemic in the world, and So that's why I wanted to write this book. And another thing I recommend is just creating a beautiful environment for yourself. Um, that think of your world as a work of art, your home as a work of art. Uh, buy yourself flowers, um, and and do have beautiful um, sculptures uh, and items in your house that are inspiring to you. Paint your house beautifully, um, and light incense if that's not you're not allergic to incense.
Yes.
Incense is very uplifting.
Oh yeah, I love incense.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm an incense freak, and uh, when I lived in Long Island, I lived very close to a Hindu temple,
Ooh.
and down the street from it was a Hindu kind of 7-Eleven that sold all these great Indian treats,
Yeah.
and had a literal mountain of incense sticks, all from India, and they were so cheap.
Yeah.
So every week that I would go, I'd buy 5, 10
Absolutely.
boxes of them.
Yeah.
But yeah, to have flowers in your home, to decorate your home, to uh, and that goes with your body also, to have nice clothes, to show respect to yourself, um, uh, and so many people walk around and they don't have respect for themselves. Uh, Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm
Just
just pictures are coming to my mind. Sweatpants and
yeah,
t-shirts,
exactly.
t-shirts with big advertisements for corporations on them, and
Well, another thing that I highly recommend is uh, to have a positive frame of mind.
absolutely.
Yeah. Now, and I want to say right off the bat, I'm not talking about a Pollyanna type view of the world. That's bullshit, and that's a cop out. People say, "Oh, you just want to be a Pollyanna." No, no, no. There is beauty in the world, and there's many ways to find this beauty. You can, if you live near nature, you can take nature walks. If you have a garden, you can go out and garden in your garden. Um, or you can just read inspirational books and articles the first thing in the morning, or say a positive affirmation the first thing when you wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
Anything to just get yourself into that groove of I'm gonna have a great day. This is going to be a great day, and I'm going to remember my connection with the divine today. Start the day off with that. So I recommend books by Eckhart Tolle. Uh, uh, I don't know if you've heard of Leonard Jacobson.
No.
He's a very interesting fellow, around our age, and he teaches a type of, I would say, mindfulness. Well worth checking out. Mike Dooley, that does the letters from Tut every day. You
Don't
can
know him.
yeah, you can subscribe, and you can actually fill in what your goals are, and then he automatically inserts what your goals are in various emails that you receive every morning.
Huh.
And he loads it like real early in the morning. So when you open up your email, it's right there, and it's
Nice.
a positive message.
Cool.
and Ernest Holmes, Neville Goddard, Khalil Gibran,
Oh, yeah.
C.S. Lewis, Neil Donald Walsh, Greg Braden, Terry Cole Whitaker. I mean, it goes on and on and on. Whatever person happens to inspire you, get your juices flowing.
Yeah.
There's some really fantastic people out there that are worth it. Instead of watching the news, turn on a video of one of these people speaking.
Absolutely. Most news is just useless negative information.
It's useless, absolutely. It's not helpful. It's superficial, and that's another thing the Archons are working their hardest to do, is to keep things on a superficial level. And relationships nowadays are so superficial. So what else can I recommend here? Indigenous rituals, like the sweat lodge, to partake in traditional indigenous rituals. Here we have something similar to the sweat lodge. It's called a temescal, and temescal means house of heat in the Aztec language Nahuatl. It was employed by the Aztec and Olmec indigenous peoples and is still practiced today. And the sweat lodge is practiced by the Navajo and Sioux indigenous nations of North America. So there's such a plethora of methods that people can start to use to build themselves up so they're not so vulnerable. And it's not easy. One summer, I was playing piano for a summer dance program, and to my shock and horror, I was about 28 years old. There was no TV in my hotel room, and I went through TV withdrawal. And it hurt. It hurt. It wasn't for a 28-year-old young man.
Yeah, sure.
Suddenly to be deprived of television. I couldn't think of anything worse in the world. So I actually became really depressed because, ironically enough, this place, I don't know if I should name it. It might, we might have lawsuits, but it's famous for being a retreat for Protestant pastors and preachers.
Huh.
And this is very, very famous. And they have a lot of good things about it. It's very pretty, a lot of little houses. But I shared nothing in common with these people. I just, they just looked askance at us artists like we were the scum of the earth. And so they had a newspaper, a little newspaper it's like a little town. And so I noticed in the classifieds that it said an advertisement for a therapist, a psychologist. I thought, well, let me give her a call because I'm not doing too good here. And so I started talking to her, and I thought, well, let me see, like, on what side she's on. Is she like another one of the holy rollers here, or is she really open-minded? So I decided to like put the word fuck in one of my sentences,
Uh-huh.
to see if she would like fall off her chair, and she didn't. So I thought, okay, she's cool. I'll talk to her. And I explained to her that I was feeling unbearably lonely, and just really lost. And she said to me, okay, promise me you'll do two things. She says, you don't have to come back here anymore, but you have to do two things. And if you promise me you'll do these two things, we have a deal. So I said, okay, tell me what are the two things? Well, this community was situated right on a lake, a beautiful lake. She said, I want you to swim for an hour every day. And then I want you to compose music. I'm a music composer, for 3 hours every day. I said, that's your solution? She said, absolutely. Go and do it. So I had nothing to lose. It really was a difficult time for me. So I went out and I swam every day, and I composed for 3 hours every day. They had these cool little mini houses, and each one had a piano in it and two chairs. And I decided before I began the composition that I was not going to correct anything. That I was, whatever came through me, I was going to put down on the notation paper. And I composed all summer long. I swam every day. I met a fantastic young lady that we had a wonderful friendship. But I continued my composing and my swimming. And when I got home, I recorded that composition. I sent it into the radio, and within a month, it was played on National Public Radio.
Amazing.
Pretty damn good, huh?
That's fantastic.
For a young man fucked up because he didn't have his television. All he had to do was to deprogram himself from the Archon television and go into nature, the water, and swim with the fish for an hour, and then play beautiful music for 3 hours. And that's another thing that I highly recommend. Listen to music, especially uplifting music. Now, I know, like, if you like heavy metal, now there's a new kind of heavy metal. Well, it's not that new, but it's symphonic heavy metal. And it's fantastic. So you still have all the stuff you love about heavy metal, but you have an orchestra, and very frequently it's very uplifting, beautiful music. There's a Leah, Leah is her name, all caps. Look for her videos on YouTube. And so you don't have to listen to heavy metal that's saying, Satan loves you or something like that. You can
Cannibal Corpse.
I don't know that one. Oh, and I still owe you for David Bowie, 1995, the Outside album and tour.
That's what I looked like.
Yeah, that's what, I don't know. That's what was coming through to me so strong the last time.
Okay.
I didn't forget. Yeah, Outside album and tour. He
Okay.
had he had 9 Inch Nails opening up for
Oh
him on
yeah,
the
I think
tour.
Trent Reznor did some of the music for that album too.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It's very interesting to read about. So yeah, that's the Bowie that you
Gotcha.
remind me of.
Well,
Uh, Go on, go on.
what do you think about the intentional use of entheogens as far as uh
Uh, well, basically, I'm all for them. Um, I uh, I think that you have to be very very careful. Like we are talking about training the your intellect, your mind. Um, as they say, know thyself. So if you don't know thyself before doing it, it can be a horrific experience
absolutely.
and can take. I I made the mistake of taking LSD when I was 19 years old, and I did not know very much about myself at the time. I had about 2 years of therapy, um, but very, very basic kind of stuff. And it took me, many years to recover from that. It took me a year or two to just basically recover from it. But I actually lost the ability to speak to speak freely. I I was born uh, a natural born speaker, not the NBK, but yeah, I can remember just going around when I learned about yoga in grammar school and going from class to class and just teaching the students about yoga, uh, and words would just flow out of me. It never was a self-conscious thing that was happening, and it was like it was something that my heart led me to. It was my true will, as Crowley would say. I just did it. I couldn't stop myself from doing it, from sharing what I knew. But after taking this LSD, I lost that ability,
Wow.
and yeah, and that's horrible. It took me decades and decades to recover that. Um, yeah, yeah. So uh, so I suggest that anyone who is struggling with any kind of personal depression, anxiety, people who have been diagnosed bipolar or anything like that, no, stay away from it, because you're going to go really, really deep. You're going to see some very profound things. And there's very little difference, if any, between the inner and the outer, in my opinion. Uh, it's something that I think about more and more lately, about projection, that we project the world that we see around us, and that so there's very little difference between inner and outer worlds. So if we're traveling deep into our unconscious minds, well, we just might meet some archons there. Because what is the unconscious? Well, it's where the astral kind of meets the our brains and our minds.
Yes.
So, and you don't want to meet an archon unprepared. Um, so yeah, if you're psychologically healthy, physically healthy, um, I believe it's good. I would stay away from all artificial things like LSD.
Sure.
I recommend that people and I'm not saying go out and do this because I can't say that, but for myself, I have done mushrooms and various other plant-based entheogens, and those I consider safe and yeah, cacti and such.
You also, and I am sure a lot of people listening can probably relate to this, including me, but another way to sort of protect yourself from archons is to avoid labyrinthine conspiracy theories.
Oh yeah, yeah. This, you know, and you're talking to a lover of conspiracy theories.
Same here.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, if anyone uh, cares to check this out, um, Laurence Galian had his own. I don't know if you call it podcast or with what did they call it? Blogcast? No, vlog.
Yes.
Vlog,
Yes. Uh-huh.
yeah. On YouTube for many years. And it's still available on YouTube. It's called The Place Inside. If you Google Laurence Galian, The Place Inside, there's 40 episodes maybe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a good number of episodes.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll put a link in the show notes.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
We really got into a whole lot of things, but there are people that, well, I've socialized with many people involved in various conspiracy theories. As you know, I'm very much into UFOs, extraterrestrials, things like that. But people can get lost in all of this. The basic idea, again, is the archons want to distract us from reality and spirituality. So anything that will distract us can be a tool of theirs if misused. I mean, I don't see anything wrong with putting, I don't know, $10 in a slot machine and then going home. But when you're spending your paycheck, as a dear friend of mine who passed away would do, he would spend his entire paycheck. He would gamble it away. Then we're talking about a full archon possession of a person. So yes, it's very fascinating to enter the labyrinth, but if you see that you're being led into circles, and here it's you really need a good flashlight, and that's why I recommend my book and the techniques in my book, because it's so easy to get irretrievably lost in these mazes.
Sure.
It's when you start in anything like analyzing all the different secret agencies of the United States government. I have a vlog on that. And one thing I noticed is that recently they're talking about the the head of Homeland Security resigned. But sure, they talk about that because it's all superficial. But where is all the great investigative journalism that digs deep and tells you what Homeland Security is doing, what these agencies are doing, and so that you can learn more and more about the truth and not just a superficial reality. And again, if the Archons can get you angry as all hell about what the Democrats are doing or the Republicans are doing, then wow, they've got you in the palm of their
Oh
hands.
yeah.
And you don't need to use the word archon. You can use the word demon. You can use the word negativity. You can use the word depression. Uh, there's so many. The point is that you have to lift yourself out of this horrible like artificial world that's been created for us of like for men of constant football, 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 cars, 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 um, and earn more and more money. And I don't want to just dump on men uh, because the archons have many ways of attacking women also.
Sure.
So uh, they're just after us, and
And going back to conspiracy theories, there's a reason that a branch of that is called fear porn too. I mean, it stirs up a lot of fear and anxiety. A lot of these things can't be proved. So if they're hanging in the realm of ambiguity, it's easy to get caught up in freaking out and thinking that you have no say in anything, and that there's this huge, conspiracy against
yeah,
all of
I
us.
think I think the last time we were talking about, if I'm not mistaken, uh, Secret Machines and Tom DeLonge,
Yeah, yeah,
uh, that that he's presenting this image along with our current president that we are under alien attack and that the aliens are bad. Uh, and that's like saying the people are bad or all white people are bad or
yeah.
it's stupid. If there's anything that's wonderful about this universe is it's diversity. It's uh, I don't think we need to travel to another planet to. We just need to go to the bottom of the ocean. I heard that we know more about the surface of our moon than we know about the bottom of our oceans.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So, but yeah, you're absolutely right. This fear porn right now, it's they're trying to make us believe that all beings that could possibly be from other dimensions or other galaxies or whatnot, they're all bad. They're out to get us. And I think that's foolish. I believe that we have been under the care and guardianship of many benevolent beings. Now, I have several quotations in my book about how people have compared the eons to angels or benevolent extraterrestrials. So, yes, we have been under the care of benevolent beings that do care for us and do their best to protect us. Uh, but what do we have now? Not only do we have Fukushima and the pollution of the Pacific Ocean, but now there are, I believe, four new continents, and it's not that new real continent in Asia, but continents of garbage, of plastic that are floating in the Atlantic Ocean, the Pacific Ocean, and I believe the Indian Ocean. And these are immense. They're the size of Alaska. And you know how gigantic the state of Alaska is.
Yeah.
This is just pure plastic. It's deep. It's um, and we're destroying the planet, and we should be in relationship with the planet. This is, I believe very, very deeply that the Christ and Sophia are part of the planet. They are expressing themselves, and we have the choice of what are we going to do? What are we going to do? Are we going to show our love for them? Are we going to show our love? Already around the planet, we have so much space junk. It's unbelievable. We can't keep track of all the space junk that's up there. So this is not the way to be a good resident of the universe.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I don't want to keep you too much longer. I mean, you have so much of a wealth of knowledge about all this stuff, and your book goes into a lot of detail about, which is one of the many things that I like about it, is it doesn't feed into that fearful aspect. It gives you some tools to work with, and you feel like you actually have an important place in all of this, and that you can sort of work your spiritual muscles, become secure and confident in your awareness in order to deal with this kind of stuff. And I think that's really important, because it's very easy to, there's even a lot of, you hear some podcasts that talk about archons and their plan for us and what's happening, and it makes you feel like, holy shit, we're fucked. Like, what can we possibly do? But this gives you a lot of things to work with, and I think that's exactly what we need. So I highly recommend this book. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you would like to say about all of this?
Well, one thing I'd like to tell people about is my website, quantumtheurgy.click. That contains some of my most profound writings, the deepest researches that I've gotten into of late. So that's quantumtheurgy.click. And also, I'd like to show people some books that I also recommend.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that.
This person, Sid Charisse Ropp, PhD, just sent me this beautiful book, The Gnostic Gospel. And it's a slim book, but it's just based on one of the Nag Hammadi codices. And it's filled with lovely illustrations in full color. And this person wrote a beautiful dedication for Laurence, Defeater of Archons, Onwards and Upwards, Sid Charisse Ropp, 2019.
Fantastic.
And then there's another book, a Gnostic prayer book by Jeremy, I believe it is, Puma, Puma. And he takes different parts of the Nag Hammadi library and creates various prayers that you can say, like he has the Stranger's Prayer, prayer upon waking, prayers upon retiring, prayer before a meal, prayer of protection invoking the four lights, prayer for the sick. So it's just a wonderful book. I highly recommend it.
Nice.
And as far as the Nag Hammadi, this is the baby, in my opinion, that you should get. It's edited by Marvin Meyer. Mm-hmm. The Nag Hammadi Scriptures, the revised and updated translation of sacred Gnostic text, complete in one volume. It's all here. And I believe you need to go to the source with so much of this. And remember, it's about having your own experience. It's not about what I've said today. This is your experience with the divine. And I believe you have a responsibility to explore what you think the divine is, and to ask yourself questions like, who am I? And who do I think God is, or what is God? Just ask yourself and come to your own conclusions. Tobias Churton, not only his Gnostic Mysteries of Sex, but he has a bunch of great books on Gnosticism that I highly recommend. He's really done his homework, and don't forget me, Alien Parasites.
Yes, and we'll have the links to where you can get the book. Where would you prefer people to buy the book?
I think Amazon. Amazon is very easy, and also some of my other books are there, available as both Kindle and paperback. Alien Parasites exists in a Spanish version, so you can buy Parasitos Alienígenas in Espanol. And so if you have any Spanish-speaking friends, you can purchase it. But Amazon is good.
Cool. Well, I'll definitely provide the link for that too.
Thank you. I really want to say a very profound thank you, Chris, for giving me this opportunity. You're a kind soul and you're a loving soul. Yeah, man. And you're a great interviewer. It's you've pulled out a lot from me that you surprised me, especially our last show. I was like, wow, where did that come from?
Well, you make it very easy.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Yes, it's wonderful.
It's been my pleasure.
Absolutely, and there will be many more conversations to come for sure.
Sounds great.
All right. Well, have a good rest of your afternoon, and I'm so sorry about the wires getting crossed before. I apologize.
Well, no, that's just computer stuff.
It is computer stuff, but I found the website that you thought was down, so maybe I redeemed myself a little bit.
You did.
Yeah.
Well, let's tell people about it.
Yeah.
It's Laurence Galian's Sufi Archives, and Peter Lamborn Wilson wrote back in the 1950s and 60s. They used to talk about beat Zen versus square Zen. Laurence Galian's Sun at Midnight represents a kind of hip Islam, warm-hearted and heretical, opposed to everything monolithic and dour in Islam. If such a thing as American Sufism ever appears, this will be one of its holy books. Peter Lamborn Wilson.
All right.
I treasure that blurb from him.
Yeah, that's.
And you found that they Earthlink had taken down this site for more than 6 months, and you found it, man. I'm like, you couldn't have given me a greater gift in all the world.
That's great. So, if there's any way that you can save it or save the contents,
I'm going to explore. Yes, I think there are ways to. I can take. What do they call those page scans?
Or a screen capture or something.
Screen capture,
Yeah.
And I'll download all the articles and everything.
Cool.
But thanks again, Chris.
Yes, thank you so much. Until next time, take care of yourself, okay?
You too. All right. God bless.
Yeah, see you, brother.
Bye-bye.
I am so grateful to Laurence that he took all of the time, not only to sit down and talk during this episode, but on episode 14, I will refer you back to that if you have not listened to it already. It's kind of where this discussion all started. That episode was sort of like a Gnosticism 101, whereas this is sort of a continuation of that. It would be the next logical step would be Gnosticism 102. And he pretty much laid the basics out of the tenets of Gnosticism and the cosmos, which is the context that all of that takes place in. And he's the man to do it. He knows his shit as far as Gnosticism is concerned. And as I said, he's very generous in sharing so much of his time and knowledge to sort of lay it all out for us. So I want to thank Laurence for that. Much respect, and I look forward to having him on the program again. I'm sure he will continue to write great stuff, and even if not, there's always plenty to talk about, plenty of ground to cover. A few new things have happened. Not only is the website up and going, www.themeltpodcast.com, but now you can subscribe to The Melt on iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play. Those are the places so far, and I look to spread it out to more places as time goes on, but those are the big hitters so far, and I look forward to getting more listeners through those places. If you like The Melt and you would like it to continue, and I would like to expand the horizons of what I'm doing with this show, not only to do things like getting better equipment to record on, but also to take the show into different contexts, go to conventions, go to where people are and interview them in person, stuff like that. You can contribute to my Patreon page. www.patreon.com/themeltpodcast. You can go there. You can donate $1 a month. You can donate $100 a month. Anything in between would be very, very much appreciated. This is what I'm passionate about. I would love to spend most of my time doing this, working on this podcast, and not only making it better, but providing more interviews. As it is now, I'm doing about 2 episodes per month. I would eventually like to work up to 4 episodes per month, at least. So yeah, anything that you can do, whether that be contribute financially or just spread the word in any way that you see fit in your social media harvesting context of choice, it would be greatly appreciated. Any and all of the above. And it will be easier to spread the word since, as I said, we're on iTunes, Stitcher, and Google Play now. So thank you all so much for listening. I have a lot of great shows lined up that will take us out through the rest of the year and more coming next year. So thanks for listening. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review and rate us on iTunes. That helps us to get more people to pay attention and invite them to the conversation. That's something that I want to do with the website too, is set up not only places where you can comment, but maybe a section where there is a forum where you can log on and talk to other people about the things that we're talking about here. And pardon my stuffed up nose. It happens every year about this time. My respiratory system just sort of shuts down and clogs up, and it makes me talk funny. So I apologize. Thank you again so much for listening. Until next time, take care.